Tonight, the Nolan Wells investigation into the death of a shining star, Nolan Wells, has an altercation witness emerged. A witness that claims she saw an altercation at Horn Island. Good evening. I'm Nancy Grace. This is Crime Stories.
I witnessed an altercation involving Nolan Wells from a boat nearby. That is the statement. Those 11 words posted publicly, not to law enforcement, but to the internet. And with that single declaration, the entire timeline that has been carefully constructed around the death of Nolan Wells began to crack. The official narrative has been simple. A young man goes to Horn Island on the 4th of July. He is last seen alive around 40:30 in the afternoon. The boats leave without him. He is reported missing. His body was found 2 days later in the water, an accidental drowning. That is the story that has been repeated for weeks. But now there is a witness, and her account places Nolan Wells in the middle of a physical confrontation on the island, hours after the boats allegedly departed. The timeline is no longer a straight line. It is a loop, and at the center of that loop is a phone, a woman, and a fight that nobody was supposed to see.
I witnessed an altercation involving Nolan Wells from a boat nearby. What I saw has stayed with me, and I believe it's important information. I have provided or intend to provide my account to the appropriate investigators because Nolan's family deserves the truth. Out of respect for the ongoing investigation, I won't speculate beyond what I personally observed. While I was on the boat near the area, I witnessed an altercation involving Nolan Wells and several other individuals. I saw what appeared to be an argument that escalated after there was a dispute involving Nolan's phone. I heard Nolan yelling for his phone to be returned. The argument continued after the group reached shore, and I observed a physical fight involving Nolan and multiple people. I also observed a young woman telling them to stop. At that point, I left the area because the situation had appeared to be getting worse. I did not remain long enough to witness what happened afterward. Everything beyond what I personally...
Imagine a clock where the hands are glued in place. That is what the original timeline represented. Fixed, unmoving, comforting in its finality. The boats left. Nolan stayed behind. He drowned. But this witness did not just move the hands of that clock. She shattered the face of it. Because if Nolan Wells was alive at 6 o'clock, fighting with multiple people over his phone, then the question is no longer when he died. The question is who was standing there when the clock stopped.
A Nolan Wells phone evidence torpedo.
2 confirmed witnesses that saw Nolan Wells on the island around 6 p.m. The Triton, as you said, left around 4:30.
Before we go deeper into what the documents actually show, make sure you are subscribed to the VerdictOrigin, because we do not just cover the story, we follow the evidence. The witness account is specific. She states she was a passenger on another boat near the area. She says she saw an argument escalate over a dispute involving Nolan's phone. She heard him yelling for his phone to be returned. And she watched as the argument became a physical fight involving Nolan and multiple people. A young woman was telling them to stop. That is not a vague memory. That is a sequence of events with a clear beginning, middle, and end. The witness left before the situation concluded. She did not see what happened next, but she saw enough. And then she did something that defines this entire case. She did not call the police first. She sent a direct message to one of the individuals she claims was involved. She wrote that she had video footage. She wrote that she was prepared to go to the police with the information.
I saw this text message. We reached out to the girl on her social media. She never responded to us. I don't know if she ever really sent it in to the police, but it is problematic, in my opinion, if she hasn't. If you're going to say somebody is going to spend time in jail, or you are alluding to the fact they've committed a crime, and the fact now that we know that Nolan did not survive being out there at Horn Island, and you never submitted that to law enforcement, there's a potential that that's tampering with evidence. If you have evidence of a crime and you're withholding that from law enforcement and you knowingly and intentionally are doing that, that could be very problematic for a person who claimed to be a witness.
And then she posted about it online.
The individuals that she saw, hey, I just want to say I was a passenger on another boat and I saw the argument between you guys, and we'll go to the police with this information. I also have video footage. My husband doesn't show much, but it shows the argument that was taken and how you guys were upset at Nolan because of the young lady.
That from Secret Service Sam on TikTok.
The evidence of a fight exists in fragments. A message, a claim, a video that may or may not show the argument. And every hour that passes without that material being handed to investigators is an hour that the truth stays buried.
Philip, first of all, has she turned it into police? She said she was. If she hasn't, I give her no credibility at all. Look, I want this to be true. Why? Because I want the video. I want to see the timestamp on the video. I want to see, was he still on Horn Island at 4:30 when his acquaintances on the Triton boat left? I want that video. And if she hasn't brought this forward to LE, law enforcement, then it means nothing to me. I mean, if I know a young man turns up dead in the water, and I know there's a controversy surrounding this, I mean, we know she knows that because she's gone online and posted it, then why not hand it over to police?
That is the thing about evidence. It does not disappear, but it can be buried.
If there is a witness who has a husband with her on the boat and they took a certain amount of video, it could change everything, especially if the video is time stamped.
Now the defense in the public arena has already begun its attack. The standard move is to discredit the witness. She was on a boat on the 4th of July. She was probably drinking. Her perception was compromised. Her memory cannot be trusted.
Investigation. But I got to tell you, if I were cross-examining her, should this even go to trial, the first question I'd ask her on that 4th of July, what she had been drinking. Before that video got activated, everybody would want to
put him up.
Drinking and smoking. You know how many people were partying?
Okay, man. Have you lost your mind? You defend criminal cases. I bet everybody you put on the stand has either been high, drunk, or worse during the altercation. Well, every witness is not a nun, a priest, or a virgin. Everybody on Horn Island was drinking, man. What are you talking about? I don't care if she took a drink. I want the video.
That is the argument, and it is a familiar one. Attack the person, not the footage. Attack the recollection, not the timestamp.
You know, Brandon Tatum joining us, Officer Tatum on YouTube. I've cross-examined a lot of witnesses, and I cross-examined them exactly on that. How far away were you? Did you know the target? Were you familiar with them? Was your vision obstructed by anything? Were you wearing glasses? Were you wearing sunglasses? What time of the day? I mean, I could go on and on and on. But unless you have a nun, a priest, or a virgin on the stand, or maybe Angel Gabriel might come down and testify, you have to take your witness as you find them. And I'm sure you've had a lot of drunk witnesses in Tucson to everything from a bar fight to a murder to a dope deal. Look, I'd say a good 50% of witnesses were drunk at one time or the other. That doesn't mean they didn't see what they saw.
But the forensic reality cuts against that attack. A forensic death investigator reviewing the second autopsy stated that if Nolan Wells had been in a fist fight, you would expect to see contusions. You would expect marks on the hands, the knuckles, the forearms, the face. The second autopsy reportedly performed a coronal sectioning of the face. Multiple incisions made to examine the tissue beneath the skin. And according to the expert, there was nothing indicative of blunt force trauma.
Well, Nancy, she's not saying he lost the fight. She's not saying that he got beat up. If you look at the autopsy, there's no clear signs of blunt force trauma to his face or any of the vital areas that could kill him. So it doesn't appear that there's any indication that he lost a fight, that there was enough trauma in this particular fight that would lead to his death. And when you look at the autopsy, there is no blunt force trauma to his face. There is no lacerations or damages to the back of his head. This is redness that was underneath the skin.
Oh, wait, are you looking at the screen? Because I'm looking at a big red mark on the back of his head.
Yeah, but this is underneath the skin. This is not a big red gash that's in the back of his head, which would be consistent with blunt force trauma. This is something that occurred underneath the skin that could have been from pooling of blood after his death due to,
Okay, I need to explain something.
I'll let the experts talk about specifics, but it doesn't appear that
okay, let's do
there
that.
is any
But I
blunt
want
force
everyone to
trauma
understand why Officer Tatum is here. Officer Tatum and Philip Dubé and others on our panel tonight are taking a particular side, right? It's called cross-examination, and it is similar to what happens in court. A theory emerges, a line of questioning emerges, and the other side tests it with fire under cross-examination. And then, hopefully, you get to the truth.
That does not mean no altercation occurred. It means the autopsy has not yet produced evidence of one.
Morgan, Joe Scott, if there had been not a blunt force trauma that Officer Tatum is describing, but a fist fight, if there had been a fist fight, plus body in water for multiple days, body decomposition, would you expect to see red marks on the hands at that juncture, on the face? What would you expect if there had been a fisticuffs?
Yeah, you would see, well, first off, above discolored areas, like consistent with contusions. If there are facial strikes or just body blows, you can actually see abraded areas over the surface of his fingers. And these are very subtle sometimes. And if there is decomposition, which we believe there is, particularly per the second autopsy that was performed, he didn't make note of this. And can I go one more step with this? And this is kind of graphic, but people need to understand this. This physician that did the second autopsy actually did what's referred to as a coronal sectioning of the face. So there were multiple incisions made into Nolan's face in this autopsy, this second autopsy. And this guy didn't see anything. He didn't see anything that was of import relative or indicative of blunt force trauma. And I would think that if there was contact, particularly if he's fighting a group of people, these sorts of things, you're going to have injuries probably on the leading edges, or what we refer to as the blade of the arm right here on the forearm, the back of the hands, the knuckles as points of contact. And certainly if there's facial strikes going on with him, which we find with blunt force trauma many times with fisticuffs, as you say, you'll see these.
But the absence of visible trauma does not erase the witness statement. It simply raises a harder question. If Nolan Wells was in a fight, why does his body not show it? And if he was not in a fight, why does the witness describe one in such detail?
But if there is a witness placing Nolan seemingly in the water, I can't tell that, but having an argument with another person, a partier at Horn Island, that is significant. It could prove or disprove your friend's timeline.
Somebody is wrong.
Number one, he's dead shortly after an alleged altercation with another male. We think over a woman. See, in my world, I put together both circumstantial and direct evidence. Direct evidence would be, for instance, DNA or a fingerprint. Circumstantial evidence is the timing of the alleged altercation and his death. Right?
Nancy,
so it's hard for me to believe that there's some kind of altercation on Horn Island just before he dies. And
the grand jury is now the only room where that question can be answered.
Oh, but I do know this. I know they're saying they're done with the autopsy and that it's complete, which means the gross findings in the autopsy room, the tox, the histology. That means that that autopsy report is complete. They just hadn't released their findings yet.
And speaking of that, Joe Scott Morgan, I've heard the same, that the autopsy is complete.
Yeah.
There are reports that there is no cocaine in Nolan's system. That's uncorroborated reports,
Okay.
but a good source. No cocaine in the system.
Yep.
Joe Scott, when the body has been in the elements, such as the water, for that long, how can I confirm if he had been drinking or not?
The district attorney of Jackson County has made a public statement. She said her obligation is to present the grand jury with all the evidence collected in the case in order for them to reach a decision based on a thorough investigation and complete evidence presentation. She said she will present the grand jury with a thorough, complete, and fair investigation. Those are official words. They sound like progress, but the statement also confirms something else. The case is already before a secret body. No witnesses in public. No exhibits are public. No timeline public. The people of Jackson County elected this prosecutor. And now the people have to wait while a grand jury decides whether a crime even occurred.
Now, information that there is, in fact, a criminal investigation.
Hearing that somebody who has an inside source is saying the DA's office in Mississippi is now looking at the Nolan Wells case as a criminal investigation and no longer an accidental drowning. Now, we can only pray that this is true. Obviously, we can't celebrate. We can't get excited at all because I have not seen Ben Crump announce this. It is not being reported.
That is the structure in Mississippi. A hybrid coroner's inquest and grand jury investigation. It is not a trial. It is a closed door.
This is the elected district attorney. My obligation and commitment is to present the grand jury with all the evidence collected in the case in order for them to reach a decision based on a thorough investigation, complete evidence presentation, the actual truth, and an understanding of the law. I'm obligated to do so in keeping with the law and the rules of the court. She goes on to state, I stand firmly on the rule of law and my ethical obligation. That is what the people of Jackson County elected me to do. I will present the grand jury with a thorough, complete, and fair investigation into the death of Nolan Wells. Now, is there a criminal investigation? According to some...
And behind that door, every fragment of evidence will either become a case or become nothing.
Nancy, it hasn't been announced that there's a criminal investigation, but it just stands to reason that they are doing a full investigation into the death of Nolan Wells. At this point, we don't have a cause of death, Nancy. They have not released the reports on the autopsy that was done by the state, completed weeks ago. We don't know anything. Nothing's been released. So whether they're doing a criminal investigation or not, I think it stands to reason they are investigating to every piece of evidence they can find to determine what happened and what they can present, they being investigators, to the grand jury.
The evidence of a fight exists in fragments. That is the second time that phrase appears. It matters because the entire case is built on fragments: a phone, a message, a video, a fight, a body in warm water. Then there is the issue of the boat. A report from the Mississippi Department of Marine Resources states that a vessel was searched, but the vessel named in that report may not be the vessel that Nolan Wells used on July 4th. The report says one brand. Witnesses say another brand. It is the difference between searching for a Ford and searching for a Chevrolet. Different boats, different GPS systems, different evidence. If investigators searched the wrong vessel, then every piece of information pulled from that vessel is irrelevant. And the GPS data, the Life 360 records, the timeline that the acquaintances have provided, all of it starts to wobble.
We just saw some video from your show, and I'm trying to figure out, among other things, what time and day, if you have a time and a date stamp on that, that seemingly shows the Triton with a lot of people on it leaving the island, leaving Horn Island. Do you have a timestamp on that?
I don't have the timestamp. I can ask them to see if they can get it to me. When I watched this video and they presented it to me, this was during the time that the CETO call was occurring. So it had to have been right around that time. You could see Wyatt on the boat on the phone. And so this is how it was presented to me. And just to kind of answer your question about the boat searches, it's partially irrelevant depending on the investigation and the interviews that they've done. There is no indication that there was a crime committed on any one of these boats. When you have 60 people that have already given statements to law enforcement, you have the young men that I interviewed that were on their boat that left the island, and then you have people that saw Nolan on the island after they had left. It's no indication that Nolan was on any one of those boats at any point in time and that a murder occurred on those boats. So regardless if they searched them or not, it was offered up for them to use a cadaver dog, but that never occurred. And so I don't really think that the boat situation or search is significant. The boys submitted their Life 360, which is how they got a GPS tracking of when they left the island and how they got from point A to point B, where they docked and all of those things. So all of the information has been concluded, or at least have been explored, and it didn't appear that there is any foul play.
Not because the technology is wrong, because the starting point may have been wrong.
Where was Nolan when they're leaving the island? If you can
girl,
place him
Katie,
on that island at 5 or 6 o'clock, please do it. And then I will turn attention elsewhere. I'm not trying to hang your friends, the people that you have interviewed. And I respect that you believe them, and maybe you're right. If he can be placed on that island at 5 or 6 o'clock, then they're in the clear. But I want to know who's placing them there, him there, and how.
Reports have come out that there's 2 reliable witnesses. TMZ reported on this. They said they saw Nolan a little bit before 6 p.m. There was also the young lady, Katie, who sent text messages to one of the boys that I interviewed. I saw the text messages where she alluded to the fact that she did not see Nolan get on the boat. She heard the boys yelling for Nolan to get on the boat. So Nolan never got back on the boat that he came on.
If the wrong boat was searched, the evidence of a crime, if there was one, is still sitting somewhere else.
And tonight, more rumblings that the wrong boat was searched.
The MDMR report states that the searched vessel was called a tied craft, right? On July 8th. But witnesses show he used a tied line boat on July 4th. In the MDMR report, right down at the bottom in the yellow, it says tied craft, not tied line.
From Sam Crouppen to Ben Dobrin, emergency response diving instructor and trainer. Ben, thank you for being with us. What about the mistake in the name of the boat, if it was in fact a mistake? And could that explain any problem in getting GPS information?
Well, absolutely, because they're 2 different brands of boats. It's like saying, I'm going to search a Ford, and then you go out and search a Chevrolet in a car. They're very different brands of boats. And so if they were searching the wrong boat, then any information on that boat would be the wrong information. So if you're going after the GPS plotter on the Chevrolet, but you want the GPS plotter off of the Ford, they have no bearing. And so if you're searching the incorrect boat, you have incorrect evidence.
The evidence of a fight exists in fragments. That is the 3rd time. And now the question is whether anyone in authority is willing to pick up those fragments and put them together. The public is being told that local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies have worked around the clock.
I understand the public's urgency to know what happened to Nolan, but we are not taking time for time's sake. We are taking the time required to complete the work this investigation demands. Since Nolan was reported missing, local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies have worked around the clock investigating what happened to him. Every piece of evidence must be examined. Every credible lead must be followed to its conclusion. Every witness interview must be analyzed in context of all other evidence. The pressure for answers does not change what the work requires. Our responsibility to Nolan and our community is to complete this investigation thoroughly, carefully, without compromise, supported by the evidence and worthy of the confidence of the people we serve. I also understand that many people have questions about why more information has not been released publicly. In Mississippi, the rules of professional conduct restrict the information a prosecutor can release during an investigation. Our restraint in communicating facts and evidence is not an effort to keep the truth from the public. It is an effort to protect the integrity of this investigation and the grand jury proceeding.
That every piece of evidence must be examined, that every credible lead must be followed. Those are the words of the district attorney. They are reassuring, but they are also exactly what you would say if an investigation was either completely under control or completely adrift. You cannot tell the difference from the outside. So here is the ticking clock question. If a witness has publicly claimed to possess video of an altercation involving a dead man, and if that witness has not been compelled to produce that video under oath, then what exactly is the grand jury waiting for?
No. Morally, it's wrong, but there is no duty under the law that you have to report yourself as a witness, that you have to volunteer information. You can stand on the side of a pool and watch somebody drown and do nothing unless you have a fiduciary capacity. And it's not a crime in our jurisprudence. So nothing is compelling her under the law to come forward. However, interesting, she did post it. She did identify herself. She did say she was going to police, and that would be my first line of cross. Did you take this to the police? And if she said no, all HELL break out in that courtroom. If you have information like this and you don't go to the police, no, fur would fly. Fur would fly. You ever seen a dog fight? That's what I mean by that. Fur would fly. So that would be a line of cross-exam. Hold on.
Because every day that passes is another day that the water washes away whatever was left on Horn Island. The body has already been recovered. The autopsy has already been completed.
What do you think regarding the boats, not just the Triton, but the other two boats that traveled with it?
My question is, where did he go in the water? They got him out of the water, obviously, on July 6th. But my question is, where did he go in the water and when did he get into the water? Was it a drowning? Bodies behave differently underwater, whether it's a drowning or it was a killing elsewhere. There's a lot of different variables. The body washed up very close to where he was last seen. There's a lot of current in that area. If it was a drowning, people generally sink when they drown. But if you don't drown and you're put in the water, you're more likely to float. And so there's a lot of variables that come into play of where the body was recovered versus where the body went in. And the timeline also, 2 days, if the body had been in the water for 2 days, that does lead to decomposition. The water temperature is around 85 to 88 degrees. That's very warm water, a lot of bacterial growth. And so a lot of different variables in play of where the body went in, where it came out, and the when. Those are my questions. He's an athletic young man. He's very muscular. Muscles sink in the water, fat floats. And so if he drowned, he was probably going to be on the bottom for a while. And if it was 2 days, that makes sense if he drowned and then washed up very close to where he went in. And so to me, that's a big piece of important information is, if he drowned, he was recovered very close to where he was last seen.
But what does that prove?
If he drowned, and he floated, because in warm water, it takes 2 to 3 days for your body to decompose and float. It proves that he drowned, whether it was somebody holding him underwater or him trying to swim somewhere and wasn't a good swimmer. I have no idea. But we haven't gotten the results from the autopsy, and the autopsy is going to tell us a lot. If he drowned, that's an important piece of information. If he did not drown, that's even more important. You have somebody who was found in the water, his body was found in the water and did not drown. That's a very important piece of information. But if he did drown and they found him in the water, that can open up a lot more avenues for investigation.
The grand jury is sitting, and the public is still asking one question. Was there an altercation? Did it break out into a fist fight just before Nolan Wells died? And what was the true cause of death? The publicly available document to examine is the MDMR report naming the searched vessel. It is a public record. It names a specific boat. Compare it to the witness statements and the vessel that Nolan Wells was known to use. Then ask yourself one question in the comments below. If the wrong boat was searched and a witness to a fight has only come forward on social media, then what evidence is actually inside the grand jury room right now?
Tonight, we are trying to confirm or refute claims that Nolan Wells was alive on Horn Island after 5 or even 6 p.m. If you know or think you know anything regarding that matter, Nolan Wells last seen alive, don't just post it online. Call Jackson County Sheriff's 228-769-3063. Repeat, 228-769-3063. There is a $125,000 reward for information leading to the truth of what happened to Nolan Wells. Was there an altercation? Did it break out into a fist fight just before he is killed? Did he drown? What was the true cause of death?
We are not going to speculate beyond what is documented. We are going to follow the evidence. Make sure you like this video. Share it with someone who is still asking what happened to Nolan Wells. Subscribe to the VerdictOrigin and turn on notifications so you do not miss a single filing. Because this is not just a drowning investigation anymore. It is a test of whether a system built on closed doors can survive the fact that the public already saw the crack in the timeline. And right now, the crack is spreading.